Sono un hacker. I'm a hacker, and I try to just explain you what does it means nowadays to be a hacker and what our community. I'm not the only one. I'm not the first. I'm not the last one that you will see on a stage nowadays. We are pretty much in the center of the attention, political, social, economical, in the last 10 to 15 years. I started from Pescara, where I was born. We founded an association which is called Meteorographics back in '92. We never got really much attention from public administration or anything. We talk a lot about telematic and what would that mean in the future of humankind, if not our city. And out of that experience, many people have found different paths and went through the world and made success or failures, learned how to recognize them. My path brought me outside of Italy. I was first migrating to Austria and then to Netherlands, where I live now. And there I started with a group of people. Many Italians actually immigrated outside. This network, we call it a network, is Dynorg. We produce free software. We don't have profit in mind when we plan a new product. We have mostly the social function of this new product in mind. And we arrived pretty far. Nowadays we produce an operating system which is recommended by the Free Software Foundation, several software mostly focusing on media streaming, on doing radio online. We helped streaming the first radio, the first Italian Radio Cybernet, that was on the internet back in '94. And basically we brought all this kind of big community network of people that used the BBSs before into a new world, the world of the internet, which was new for us also. Back in 2004, I got involved with two journalists, Dutch journalists, Johan de Spek and Cecile Landman, into a project that was aimed to bring the voices of bloggers from Iraq into the attention of the public, independently, without the cooperation of any real national or governmental agency. We started to have missions there to try to start radios that would stream from the field. And one of the focuses was to bring out actually what is the civil life, what is the life of a normal person in a territory, in a theater of crisis, of war. Believe it or not, I know journals, newspapers don't talk about this all the time, but there is people that try to live a normal life, even within the war, and I think these stories are worth it to be brought up, rather than talking always about the body counts and terrible tragedies that happen in war. What drives us? I mean, as hackers, we are doing a lot, and many people don't understand actually the business model that's behind, whether it's for free, what does it mean gratis, and well, I think we are very passionate people, and we love openness and sharing. Whenever we do something, rather than packing it into a product, we share it right away. We try to focus on the process rather than the result, and we value participation very much. We value errors, we value peer review, and we never really stick to the first idea. Ideas can change through time and can evolve and can fork. Nowadays we talk a lot about forking, like you put out a software out there, and if someone just takes it and do something else out of it, that's value. That means that something is reading your code, that your code is useful to someone. So is there a business model behind that? I think there is. It's not the first concern that we have, but big companies have been brought up out of this kind of ethics and this approach. Google, Facebook, these big companies are putting their own strategy on top of something that existed before, an ecology that we are bringing up with this sense of ethics, which is really well described by the Free Software Foundation, these 4 simple freedoms that Eben Moglen and Richard Stallman stated back in '83, saying that we have the freedom to run for any purpose, study and adapt, redistribute, and distribute modifications of every software. Why that? Why that is ethical? Nowadays it's very clear. 10 years ago it was harder to make people understand. Software is architecture. There is people living in there. There is people using it to communicate. The way the architecture is shaped, just like a theater or a building, conditions the way people interact within. If you can have confidential communication or not, that will actually change the way people will talk to each other and the things they will say to each other, and the way society will develop. So we are all passionate about these things. And we are living in a time that is pretty difficult. We are living a time of change. We live in a time which for someone means just beating a dead horse, trying to ride this kind of capitalist reiteration of crisis that comes on. And we are basically in a spiral. Just the financial crisis is not the crisis of 2008. There is a repetition of crisis. And we know that there is a deep, ingrained problem into the system in which we are living. So we try to solve it, and we try to solve it with bold statements, and also trying to describe what our territory is to those that are welcome into it, if they come in peace. Our territory is pretty different. It's about being digital. And in the digital territory, there are different conditions that you can actually spot. Some people like to describe it this way. You can make many copies. In the digital territory, we don't have scarcity, we have abundance. And we try to find ways to cooperate and be fostering a virtuous economy, not in scarcity, but actually in multiplying things and valuing abundance. Now, these people from the free software movement, of course, me and many other hackers in the open source business, they value what is happening nowadays. This picture is really emblematic. It was up there on the social networks. It went viral in the moment in which Richard Stallman decided autonomously to go visit Julian Assange in London, where he's confined in an Ecuadorian embassy. And they have a picture. The picture is that of Edward Snowden. Yes, we can, it says. Finally, it's actually getting some body, this statement. It's about courage, boldness, but it's also about having a natural legacy that goes on into our thought, the one of openness and the one of making the world a better place by actually aiding the change that has to happen. And I think these people are heroes. These people that decide all of a sudden, this was like the grim one of the first logo proposals of WikiLeaks, the people that decide to actually talk about the hierarchy within the system in which they are and what goes wrong. And after trying to change the system, they actually realize the only thing they can do is really let it public out there. It's a courageous act. Edward Snowden and all the people before him, they actually gave up their life to do this. And it was necessary, and it is shaping a world that is a better place in the moment in which we, the Western society, understand our own errors, and we take the courage to do that. Let me remember you that all these kind of phenomena that we are seeing online now more and more are actually even recognized within the system. The Sam Adam Prize for Integrity in Intelligence was assigned this year to Edward Snowden. The year before was assigned to Julian Assange, the first civilian to receive a prize of this kind. And then there are the new punks, of course, the anonymous people. I love them. They just don't trust you if you're older than 30. It's just like the new punk. I think I just gathered the quote of Florian Kramer about this. And then there is another phenomenon that I like to pose under your attention, which is this Bitcoin thing, which is embarrassingly successful. It's making millions in very little time. It's basically a digital currency that was developed by this mysterious person, Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's now brought up by a growing community of people doing new services for value exchange online. What you can do with Bitcoin is having cash, finally. You don't need a bank to have digital money. You don't need the database of a bank to hold a number for you. That number is in your computer. You can decide optionally to have a bank because you don't know how to put together your security, but basically it becomes an optional role. Why this Bitcoin thing, and what is related to what I just told you about? Well, this graph is not really nítido, it's not really clear right now, but you can see this first line on the left, which corresponds to the first curve of usage, which is basically the June 2009, is the, 2011, is the financial blockade to WikiLeaks. This was the turning point in which the hacker community understood that Bitcoin was needed. No one thought of that before. We were fine with the financial systems that we had because we were granted neutrality, and this is one of the main things that hackers believe in. Now, whether this is an utopia or not, the infrastructure that we use needs to be neutral. In the moment in which WikiLeaks had its own Visa, MasterCard circuit cut down without a court order, we realized that we cannot rely on the contracts that we are signing. We realized that we are not standing on a ground, on a framework that lets us actually progress, also with the courage that it takes. So people started adopting Bitcoin because it's a way to exchange value online without being cut off by any middleman. So, what I want to get today, and one of the main reasons why I'm speaking in English, is also to speak to the fellow hacker community that is following maybe this video. I think we are facing a very engaging moment because many of us are playing on a difficult, very dangerous ground, and many have fallen already. Chelsea Manning is still in captivity. Julian Assange cannot go out of his room. And Edward Snowden, luckily enough, is a bit better off. But we can't afford to lose people this way. We can't afford, and even those that believe we are the enemies cannot afford to lose these people, cannot afford to not speak and clearly and actually analyze what is happening. My call to all the hacker community is to be human, to stay human, and to look at the way what is happening with the eyes of someone else. We should all do that. We should all walk in the shoes of the people that are not us, for at least one moon, the Indians say. And I think it's very important because we live in a time in which anthropocentrism is moving towards an end, and this image kind of calls for it. And I think we have to understand also that if we cage ourselves into a position of paranoia and being spied upon or spying on, then we are just going nowhere. We are going towards a sociopathy or a very antisocial behavior. I don't feel that telling people that they should take care of their data because they are being spied is a good thing. Well, this is happening, and activists should really take care, but it's not the first thing that I want to be repeating every time I meet someone in danger. Because Gandhi once said also that the worst weapon in the hands of the oppressor is actually the mind of the oppressed. And we should not let us fence into a position of being chased upon and being paranoid about what we do and what the other people are doing. So I think we have to establish a dialogue rather than thinking about conspiracies being around. And I'd like to conclude this speech with a quote of an Italian that died long ago, an activist, Vittorio Arrigoni: "Restiamo umani." Grazie.